Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about the history of ISRO, or the Indian Space Research Organization. Its history from the back of a bullock cart and a bicycle to setting world records. I hope you enjoyed this video. This man is called Vikram Sarabhai and he is the founder of ISRO. All the way back in 1962, NASA was the powerhouse of rocketry companies, and this man thought that India needed their own fancy new system. He also wanted to use the systems he used for getting rockets successfully into space on Earth. Around 20 years earlier, on 11th November 1947, he created the Physical Research Laboratory, or the PRL, in Ahmedabad, Gujarat, and it wasn't run by the government then. It was a private organization, but now it is run by the government. He used 5 students from this base to build his rocketry association. Most importantly, he also picked one person from the Department of Atomic Energy, and there were 6 people he recruited. They all went to NASA to learn about sounding rockets. In NASA, they learned about different areas, and each member of the team had a different area to study, such as ranging or payload, etc. Then they came back to India. Once they got back to India, they formed the TERLS, which is the Tumba Equatorial Rocket Launching Station. However, before we continue with the story, we need to take a quick science lesson about sounding rockets. If you learn this, you'll understand why ISRO started off with sounding rockets. First off, sounding rockets weren't even that big. They were nowhere near as big as PSLV and GSLV rockets. They were really small and they had a payload of around 10 kilos, meaning no one could actually go in it. Sounding rockets did not launch satellites into space. Far from it. It collected atmospheric data to use on Earth. How the sounding rocket worked was that it would be launched, it would fly in the air, and then it would come down when the oxygen ran out, when the fuel ran out, and when the velocity came to 0. So when it did that, the scientists wanted it to land in the ionosphere, which is a major part in the Earth's upper atmosphere, and you can collect a lot of data from there, and obviously the payload carried everything that you needed, so you can collect lots of data down from there. If you want to spend maximum time in the ionosphere, the velocity needs to reach 0 by the time you get into the ionosphere, because if the velocity is 0, the time will be maximum, because time equals distance divided by speed. Mind you, the time spent in the ionosphere, even in this situation, would be quite low, only around 10 minutes. However, in any other rocket that releases satellites and everything, would spend even less time in the ionosphere, because it would be going at such a fast speed to get into space and the thermosphere that it wouldn't even spend that much time in the ionosphere in the first place. Interesting fact, it's called sounding rocket because the information is sent down in electromagnetic waves, and it's called sounding information. It's not because it makes sound, it's because it's sounding information down back to Earth. Now, you may be wondering why Mr. Vikram Sarabhai and his engineers decided to launch sounding rockets, and also why they did it in the West Coast, because everyone knows that the East Coast is where everyone launches rockets. The reason lies within the magnetic equator and the geometric equator. I won't go too into detail with this, but the magnetic equator is where you get the most data when launching rockets, and it's very near Tumba. Obviously, Tumba is the T in TERLS, so it was very close to the place where they launched the rockets on the West Coast, and so they launched it on the West Coast near the magnetic equator. This system was so good that every other Wednesday in every month, a sounding rocket is launched so that they can still collect atmospheric data. Everyone in the team had a job. For example, the famous Dr. APG Abdul Kalam was a range operator. He did man a couple of successful missions, but he was mostly a range operator, and like this, everyone had a job. However, there was no other leaders other than Vikram Sarabhai. 1962, Dr. Homi J. Bhabha passed away, and he was the head of the Department of Atomic Energy, and this was quite shocking. And as a tribute in his honor, the department was called the Bhabha Atomic Research Center. Like this, there are a lot of space institutions that have been named after famous people in the history of Indian space. After Dr. Homi Bhabha sadly passed away, Dr. Vikram Sarabhai became the chair of the DAE, which was very good news for ISRO, who weren't even that known at the time. In fact, they weren't even called ISRO at the time. They were called INCOSPA, which was the Indian National Committee for Space Research. They only became ISRO when they parted with the DAE, but when they joined with the DAE, they got extra funding, which was very good because they could go on more missions and expeditions, and this was very good for the space organization. India started convincing Indian scientists from other countries and other organizations such as NASA to come over to India, and they started convincing them by saying, would you rather do your 9-to-5 normal jobs and be part of an organization of thousands of people just like you, or would you rather work with a smaller group who are on your home soil doing work for your country? And just like that, they managed to convince lots and lots more people to come and join INCOSPA. But we also shouldn't forget the humble beginnings of INCOSPA. These are, put this into perspective, two INCOSPA scientists carrying a rocket on the back of a bicycle. This was the Nike Apache rocket that was launched on August the 15th, 1969 by Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. And it led to the foundation of the new ISRO. And even around 20 years later, in 1981, they were carrying their rocket, the Roshni rockets, like Apple. This one is the Ariane passenger payload experiment. That was carried on the back of a bullock cart. So even in 20 years, they were still using these humble beginnings, and put that into perspective and see how they are today. All credit is due to Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, who sadly passed away in 1971. Rest in peace. He was the one who saw everything that was going to happen before people even knew it. And people thought, why should we focus on space when you've got all of these starving people on the streets? But he knew that rocketry would be a key part of India, and it is. From these bases, we launched the PSLV rockets and the GSLV rockets that have achieved incredible feats, such as going to Mars. However, when you search the simple word ISRO, you don't see these achievements. You see a bunch of people saying how ISRO failed today and how they're just not good enough for the world. However, as a great man once said, a person who's never made a mistake has never tried anything new. Mistakes are a part of success, and that's what happened to India in this process. We were in a transition period, and we will succeed in the future. And on that note, I'd like to say thank you for watching and listening, and I hope you enjoyed this video.